On Tuesday morning, as Jesus and his disciples were walking from Bethany to Jerusalem, they came across the fig tree that Jesus had cursed the day before. Lo and behold, the fig tree was withered all the way down to the roots. The disciples are dumbfounded. How did this happen so quickly? Now keep in mind, these are the same disciples that saw Jesus feed the 5,000 quickly with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. They saw Jesus walk on water. They saw him raise Lazarus from the dead in an instant, heal the blind in an instant, raise the lame to walk in an instant. Now, why was it so hard for them to believe that Jesus could blow up a tree in an instant? Because faith must continually be kindled. The flames of faith must continually be fanned. Did the disciples actually forget these events? No. But what you don't keep in front of you will always get left behind you. This is why Jesus brings what they forgot right back in the front of their eyes by reminding them that if they, not just him, but if they have faith and do not doubt, they can not only do what they saw Jesus do, but expect to receive anything they ask for in prayer. Now, Jesus and his disciples make their way into the temple one day after his outburst. As you can imagine, the Jewish leaders weren't happy with what he did on Monday, and they wouldn't be happy with what he had to say on Tuesday. In this video, I won't adequately summarize everything Jesus said on this day, but make sure to look at the Bible references in the description below and read them for yourself. Jesus begins by heaping judgment on the Jewish religious leaders through a foray of parables. In the parable of the 2 sons, he describes one son who said he wouldn't work in his father's vineyard, but then decided to. Then the other son said he would, but then changed his mind. Jesus used the first son to describe the tax collectors and the prostitutes, and the second son to describe the Jewish leaders. The former responded appropriately to the message of John the Baptist, repenting and believing. The Jewish leaders did not. In the parable of the tenants, Jesus calls them out for failing to recognize that he was the fulfillment of the prophecy in Psalm 118. He was the stone the builders would reject, and they were the builders. And in doing so, Jesus has made himself the cornerstone. Jesus tells them that he is the stone that they are tripping over, and in doing so, the kingdom of God is being ripped away from them and given to those that produce fruit, and they would be broken to pieces in judgment. As you might imagine, the Jewish leaders didn't take favorably to these words and began scheming ways to arrest Jesus, but they knew they couldn't because he was gaining the favor of the crowds. In the parable of the wedding banquet, he describes a king who was throwing a banquet for his son, and those that were invited didn't come. The king then invites those that actually wanted to be at the banquet for the son and brought judgment on those that refused. Realizing they weren't in a position to arrest him, they decided they would try to embarrass Jesus in front of the crowds, seeing if they could trip him up with their line of questioning. They asked him questions about paying taxes and the resurrection of the dead, the greatest commandment, and the end result was the crowds being amazed at the responses of Jesus and the Pharisees looking befuddled. While still in the temple, Jesus goes on the offensive, warning the crowd against the ways of the Pharisees. Keep in mind, the Pharisees are present to hear everything he's saying. He describes them as men that care only about their appearance, their authority, and the respect that they are due. They profit off the poor and are unwilling to carry their own burdens, dumping them on the shoulders of those less fortunate. They have missed the point, and they will be punished. What the Pharisees missed, according to Jesus, was the true meaning of greatness. Those that will be great and exalted in the kingdom of God will be the humble servants. They are keeping people out of the kingdom of God when they are meant to be ushering people in. The people that they have reeled into their form of religion are further away from God than they were before they joined. The Pharisees' obedience to the law was in action, but not in heart. That they gave, but they weren't generous. They were still greedy. At one point, Jesus takes a seat strategically where the people made their offerings. The rich, likely the Pharisees, would splash the pot, making the audible sound of a waterfall of coins going into the pot. Yet Jesus points out the generosity of this poor widow who put in 2 measly copper coins. She gave all she had. Her offering was generous. It had cost her much, where others went through a mode of generosity that didn't. Jesus didn't pull any punches. He called them a brood of vipers. Let the Jesus of Holy Week remind you that Jesus is also a judge. He did what he did in the temple the day before and is speaking the words he is on Tuesday as one who has authority, because he is the one who has authority over the temple. Be reminded today, Jesus isn't your homeboy. He's not your cheerleader. He isn't here to tell you that you're okay just the way you are. You aren't. If you were, he wouldn't have had to come in the first place. He isn't here to support everything you do, because if he did, he wouldn't be perfectly good and holy. holy. But the heart of the judge is also revealed to be compassionate and merciful as he cries out, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you. How often have I longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. This shows that two things can be true at the same time. Jesus can be holy and just, and yet merciful and compassionate at the same time. By the end of the week, he will bring judgment on the sins of the world, but he will take the judgment on himself. The forgiveness that would be made possible didn't negate the kingdom life people were expected to live freely after the resurrection on Sunday. Examine yourself today. Don't wait till Good Friday for your sin to be brought to the forefront of your mind. Put yourself in the shoes of the Pharisees. Which of Jesus' rebukes that you heard cut you deeply? Where do you need to make changes in your own life? In what ways have you missed the whole point of Jesus? I hope you will join us tomorrow as we look at what Jesus and his followers were doing on Wednesday of Holy Week. But also, don't take my word for it today. Go down into the description of the video below and look at the Bible references of what took place on Tuesday of Holy Week and read them for yourself. I'll see you tomorrow.